Okay. So my talk today is about investigating fentanyl and the supply chains behind fentanyl. Um, this is really fun for me. I've been a talk speaker at SANS probably 3 times now, and I really like speaking at this conference. So, who am I? I'm a senior OSINT analyst for a large consulting firm. I'm also a licensed private investigator in my state. I am recently a keynote speaker. I have not done it yet, but I'm putting it on here because it counts. I will be at the Layer 8 conference, keynoting that in June. I'm also an author of Deep Dive Exploring the Real World Value of Open Source Intelligence. It's a book, you can grab it. And I am a co-creator of Case Scenarios, which is an OSINT training company. And I do a lot of volunteer work and local work in OSINT. So, like I said, my talk today is about the supply chain of fentanyl and how we as OSINT analysts can figure out how to track fentanyl and people selling fentanyl. So first, we have to identify the supply chain. And uh, one well-reported supply chain path is from China to Mexico and then into the US. It's not really the only path that fentanyl takes. It comes out of India and some other places too. But for this specific talk, I'm going to talk about the supply chain from China to Mexico and then into the US. So how this works is the chemicals are manufactured in China and then they are sold to usually cartels in Mexico. And the cartels will synthesize them, combine them with other chemicals, and then produce fentanyl. And then they will traffic it into the US, usually through the southern border. These precursors are very heavily regulated in the US. They're starting to be regulated in China, probably not as much as the US, but this is very reported on. You can go and look, Google it, and you can find like multiple DEA, FDA reports on this path. So what happens is it's very low cost, and you can see $800,000 worth of pills on the black market just from a little bit of this key ingredient is NPP, and it can be bought from China for about $87. And this is a chart from the DEA showing the path of fentanyl, and this is from 2017, I think, but I don't think it's changed too much. You can see that the fentanyl is the precursors are created in China and India, and then they're usually flown or taken by ship over to Mexico, and that's where they're synthesized. And this can be in smaller labs or utilizing bigger labs that create actual pharmaceuticals, and then they are trafficked into the US. So what is the role of Mexico in this supply chain? We already talked about they synthesize these chemicals, and this is a report from I don't know where this is a report from. It's in my notes, but this is a report that a journalist did where they contacted an actual supplier and in China, and they were trying to make a deal to buy chemicals, and you could see their back and forth. The journalist is saying, "Is Mexico okay, or is the U.S. okay?" And they're saying Mexico is okay because shipping to the U.S. is difficult because the cost is higher and it's harder to get it in. So they ship to Mexico first because it's cheaper and easier. And these are all important things to know because understanding the context behind what you're looking into, what you're researching as an OSINT analyst is super important. And we see they even say they use the safe line shipping, how much it costs, how long it takes to arrive. and whether it comes by air or sea, and they say it depends on the freight forwarder. And you can see in this New York press release, um, and this is just one from 2023, just a random one I pulled, that they are arresting Chinese chemical manufacturing companies for manufacturing fentanyl. And what's important is these chemical companies are often legitimate chemical companies. They are creating other pharmaceuticals in China, and they're just kind of doing this on the side. So the points of OSINT collection, this report, this collection, this presentation that I've done is not an actual case. It's made up from things that I have actually done. I've recreated using different selectors, and I've recreated the process that I've used in real cases. So these are the points of OSINT collection that I'm going to talk about. We're going to search for names and aliases, phone numbers, addresses, and this could be single addresses or companies that are co-located at the same address, advertisements, domains, IPs, registration details for the companies, and wording or phrasing that is in the actual websites or their ads. And this is my chart. I know it's small, it's hard to see, but I'm going to break it down in other slides. This is the overall investigation that I did, and this was probably for me about 2 hours total. Um, and I'll walk through how I found it, but you can see there's people, there's addresses, some social media, phone numbers, email addresses, and this is how I connected them all. This here is an example of some ads, and this is my jumping off point. So it's super easy to go onto Google and just type in specific precursor names. And again, this can be Googled, or I've used like ChatGPT and asked, what are the hardest to find or hardest to procure chemicals for the development of fentanyl? And it will give me the names. So I don't necessarily have to know that information. I just have to be able to find it. And then it'll give me names like NPP or I'm going to butcher these names like piperidone. Um, and these are all chemicals that are used to create fentanyl. So it's not the fentanyl itself, it's just like the main ingredients to create it. And they can be used for other things. But they're primarily made for fentanyl. And that is why they are heavily regulated in the US. But if you go on to Google and you search for these chemical names, you can find advertisements. And you can see a lot of these advertisements here are from Alibaba. That's a really good place to start. Also, made in China. These are chemical resellers. So people can put up ads for chemicals, and then other people can go and buy them in bulk from these websites. So you can see they put up pictures of their products, and they have their names and some other identifying stuff. So what can we do with this? So this is an example. This is the one I started with. You can see a lot of stuff in this specific advertisement. It's pretty bland picture. It's just some white powder. Doesn't mean too much to me. But this one ad has like a whole bunch of information that as an OSINT analyst, I can use. So you see the logo, there's the Mark Camel logo. So we have the name, we have the logo picture. So I can then take that name, I can Google that name, I can look at business records for that name, I can look in Chinese business records for that name. I can reverse image search that logo and see where else it shows up on the internet. I can also reverse image search the whole ad to see if they just reuse this picture on different sites. And these are all different points that I would add onto my chart. And that's important. That's how I work. I'm a visual person. I know not everybody works that way, but if you are a visual person, that might be a really good way to work on a case. I find that when I use these link analysis charts, if I keep updating them as I'm finding things, it shows me where the gaps are. So if I'm adding emails and addresses and phone numbers, and then I look and I see that one organization doesn't have an email attached, then I know I need to go find an email for that because I haven't found it yet. So, a link analysis chart alongside my investigation really helps me to pivot because it shows me where I haven't pivoted yet. Some other things in this ad are a Skype name. So we have Sally Kai 2009. So that shows this Skype name is probably pretty old, 2009. But does she still use it? Probably. We have an email. We have sales@camelchem.com. And so that's interesting to me because why is it camelchem.com and not Smart Camel? Because that's the company name, right? So what is CamelChem? Is that the parent company? Is that a subsidiary? Is that a random domain that was set up? So that's interesting. And then we have below that a name of a company, Smart Camel Science Technology Company Limited. That's very long. Most Chinese companies are company limited. That's just like a pattern that you pick up after a while. Uh, so that's the full name. So now we have a logo that says Smart Camel, but we have the full name is Smart Camel Science Technology Company Limited. And then on top of that, we have their Alibaba link. So this would go to their Alibaba sales page, which would probably provide additional information because they're trying to sell. So here I did a simple Google search. I searched for Smart Camel in quotes, Smart Camel, and just in Google. And I came up with a bunch of sites, but I pulled this one specifically. It was for chemical register. And when you go to this page that it links to, it shows Smart Camel Fine Chemical Company Limited. We already knew that, but it also gives us an address. So now we have room 1504, Shanghai, China. So again, logging that on my link analysis chart. I now have addresses. I have a new domain because the other one was camelchem.com. This one's camel-chem.com. Why do they have two domains? Do they go to the same place? That's something I would check. We also have a phone number. So with a phone number, you can do a search for that and see where else it shows up on the internet. The domains too, you can, instead of looking into the specific domain, you can just search that domain like in quotes to see where else on the internet they may have put an ad that uses that domain. So you're basically just searching the internet for a bunch of the same selectors you've already found. And that will continue to open up more and more avenues for research. So I did a search for camel-chem.com in quotes on this right image here. And one of the responses I got was this LinkedIn page for Sally Kai. So she's listed as the Director of International Marketing for Smart Camel in Shanghai. So a lot lines up with the company that we're seeing. And it also has the domain camelchem.com. That's why it showed up in the search. And it mentions her university, Hunan Business University, that she has a bachelor's degree. So this is her LinkedIn page. This is just one social media account. I did find a bunch of social media accounts based on names that I found in the chart. I would again go and search all of these names in Google. I'm going to say I am not big on using tools. I know they're great for collecting a lot of data. I prefer maybe to my detriment sometimes, to do things manually, because for me, it is easier to follow the path of discovery when I do it manually versus having a tool go out and find 5 million things, present them to me, and now I gotta sift through it all. Um, if I am able to pivot from one thing to the next and log in on a link analysis chart, I can really see the values start to unfold of what I've found. I may not find everything, but if I find the most valuable thing, that's what I'm looking for. Um, okay, so this is the LinkedIn page for Sally Kai. She says she works at Smart Camel Science Technology. She went to Hunan Business University. There's a link there. Um, a picture. This might not be her. This could just be like a random photo that was taken or used or pulled from the internet and used as a profile picture. So I would reverse image search that to see if it shows up anywhere. Maybe I can prove that it's a fake picture or I can link it to other social media accounts she has. It also says that she supplies nutritional material to bodybuilding supplement company, um, Nootropics Pro Hormone from China. I have found while researching fentanyl that there's a weird crossover with steroids and bodybuilding, and it appears that many of the companies, these biotechnology companies in China that are creating fentanyl precursors, also do steroids and bodybuilding stuff. So that's just another selector to like consider if you come across somebody selling steroids from China. Trace it back a little, and you might find like a mix in with like fentanyl chemicals as well. So another thing I could do is I could take, and I had to keep this short because it's only 30 minutes, so I didn't dig in as I usually would. But another thing you could do is go to the company page and see if it lists, like the company LinkedIn page, and see if it lists other employees, and then you could look into all of those and see what their connections are. So this right here is part of my chart zoomed in, and you can see kind of the path that I've taken so far. We started with Smart Camel Fine Chemical Company. We were able to pivot to Camel-Chem, and then from there, if you go to the domain, you get more information. They have the sales at Camel.chem was on one of the ads. We also find a domain linked to um, Tianjin Camel, an export company. You can also see some of my other pivots here. Like I found addresses connected to each, and all of these are from Google searches. Like I did not use any paid tools. I didn't use anything but Google for this. So this just shows like low budget. This is what you can do. It's a lot of just pivoting and connecting the dots. So this is that Tianjin, I know I'm butchering that, Camel Import Export Company. When I searched for that, I found that it says it's a textural company, like they make like textile and agricultural products, sunflower seed, pumpkin seeds, and this could be a legitimate company that's connected. Like I said, they often do legitimate business while they're producing these chemicals that make them a lot of money on the side. Um, their contact information on this page, it says their company address is the port, which was interesting to me because I wonder if they're importing I mean, they are an import-export company, so are they also exporting their NPP or other fentanyl chemicals that way? Is that why they're connected? So these are research questions that I'm logging down as I'm doing this work that I want to try and answer as I keep going. We have some more selectors here. So there's a contact person, Fiona Fan I don't know if that's a real name. A lot of these names are like Americanized. Um, and then we have a telephone number and another email. So again, this email is interesting because it is admin@fortunewhole.com. So what is that domain? We have to research that and figure out what's going on with that. And then we have the original camelchem.com domain. This was another page that came up when I searched for this company, um, the import export company. And it's just a lot of like garbage about sunflower seeds and stuff. But if you go to the bottom, it gives an address. So that's a new address. We don't have that address already. Um, and it gives another contact person. So now we have Miss Eva Wang and a phone number and a fax number and the URL. So again, my process would be add all these to a link analysis chart, showing what linked me to what. And then from there, like I'm going to go and search for Miss Eva Wang, look for her social media, her LinkedIn, other places on the internet where her name is being used as Miss Eva Wang, Eva Wang. I'm going to look at the phone number and see where that shows up. And yes, of course, you could put these into paid tools to try and see if there's any correlation. The address is, uh, it says office building. It says airport logistics processing zone. So that tells me it's probably at an airport. Um, I would look into this to see what other companies are co-located in that same address. So sometimes if you Google a Chinese address, you'll find like 5 other companies located there. Sometimes it's nothing. There's lots of companies in these big buildings, but sometimes you can make a connection. Also, Smart Camel Science Technology Company, I ran a search for that and I found yet another domain, smartcamelchem.com. So that's what, 3 domains so far that we found? 4, 4 domains. This is just like a quick overview without looking at my giant chart on how I pivoted through this. Starting with the chemical ad, I found on the ad the employee name, WhatsApp number, company name. From there, I was able to pivot to the logo, domain, email of that company. From the employee, I went to social media, the other companies they work for, their job experience, their emails, and we can dig in further to all of those things. Like this may look like 10 pivots, but there's like hundreds here. And that's what makes a good OSINT analyst is being able to look at this and say, wow, I want to know this and this and this, and why is this like this? Here's just a quick overview of the giant chart that I have in full now that you've seen the investigation. So you can see how I kind of put it together, all the pieces, all the phone numbers, all the people attached and their addresses. I lied. I did use one paid tool, but you could do this without using it. I was just lazy. I looked at the who is for camelchem.com and I found some registration info. So I'm not great at IP and networking and like understanding all the technology OSINT stuff. I do my best, but mostly I spend my time in who is records. So oftentimes, like they will block their who is information, but if you go back in time, you can find different information on different dates. So this one back in 2010 had this name Fen Long Lee. It has a phone number, it has a Gmail. So these are again pivots that I would use. So I would take his Gmail, and I love Epios. Sorry, I don't pay for Epios, but the free version, you can go in, you can put in a Gmail, and you can get a bunch of details back. I looked at his calendar and his maps, and it didn't really tell me much. It does tell me that he has a MySpace and a Spotify, so if you were able to find, like, credentials or something, you could do something with that if you were needed to report on it. And then another domain, historical domain in 2012 for camelchem.com showed the registrant of Kai Sally. So that's another thing. Chinese names sometimes are flipped. So you want to try them both ways. Last name first, first name last. Yeah. And then it has the registration organization and address. I think this is a different address. And it has a different Gmail here. So farintermediate@gmail.com. So that's another name and another email we can add. Um, so looking at that email, we can see that it gives us a name, no profile image. It does show the Skype account attached, and it does give us our Skype name of Sally Kai 2009 that we already had. So now we have connected. Even though it said Sally Kai, we didn't really have a solid connection that it was the same person. But now that we see it connects to the Skype name that we already have, that kind of verifies that a little bit more. But I do want to know what Pharmacy Intermediate is. Is that a company? Why do they use a Gmail? That's weird. If it's a real company, they shouldn't really be using a Gmail. So that's kind of an indicator. Um, so this was a historical look at the website back in 2018 for Smart Camel. And because it's not up right now, I think they either got shut down or they changed their business. Um, but back in 2018, their website was still up, and they had some contact information. They have their address. I don't think that's their real building. That ad that we had been looking at is there on the front page. There's an IP address. There's some mobile sites, a sales number, and their registrar. So these are all details that I would again put on a link chart. If I was submitting this in a report to like a government agency, they would want to know the registrar and things. So if they had to take down the website, they could. Back in 2016, the website was up still. It was not very good, but the the contact information is still there, but now it says Mr. Sally Kai, which is interesting. Before it was Miss, so that kind of tells me that might be a fake name. It also used the farintermediate@gmail.com address and a different um, address. Another thing I was able to do was look at the site camelchem.com in the Wayback machine since I knew it's not live now. And I went back to 2010. And if you go back to 2010, it has this Tianjin camel import export. So they must be using them interchangeably. It's probably the same company. It also has the admin at Fortune Whole domain and address on there. So that's probably the same organization. They're probably all the same company, just doing different things and representing themselves differently as they're selling different products. Another Wayback Machine screenshot was in 2013, and this gave me some more details. Again, building out my link analysis chart, seeing where gaps are, adding these telephone numbers, this sales@camelchem.com address, and physical address. And these give so many pivots that you can make. Again, quick view of my chart. I think I'm running out of time. This just shows the Sally Kai connection to all her phone numbers and the addresses, and how I'm physically connecting this as I go. That's it. I did really good on time. My name's Ray. You can contact me pretty much anywhere on the internet. You can find me on LinkedIn. I use Wondersmith_Ray across social media. I also have a new book coming out in June 2026 about AI and OSINT, and I hope you'll check it out.